Hello, my name is Trotter Alexander. I'm a Chicago-based artist, and welcome to my imaginative collection called The Story of Makana. I would say growing up, I have had a lot of experiences that kind of had me retreat into my own head. I wasn't really vocal with how I wanted to feel or how I felt, or when I wanted to express how I felt. So of course, the only way for me to express myself without sound is sketches, a bunch of ideas, drawings, coming up with different characters. And the classical, your parents are encouraging you to keep expressing yourself and create yourself. And thankfully, my parents weren't like normally the average American traditionalist. They were both expressive. They were both artists within their own right. So when they saw me in my own expression, they understood, they could comprehend the process. They could understand how I should mold myself. And more than anything, if we're getting even more, mature, my dad will always come around and ask me, like, how would I utilize my talents to contribute to society? Like verbatim, that's what he would ask me at age 11. So, these were like the criteria for me to grow. You know what I mean? Me growing up as a man, my dad and my mom will also raise me as an artist as well. They will always plug me with different outlets, with different programs and different artists to look up to. So, it's just really dope to have the ability to just be surrounded by the support that people know why they're supporting instead of blindly. They know how to relate to you. They know how to encourage you the right way. They also know how to critique you too. I remember this one day that my dad would, he saw a piece of mine, and all the color palettes that I would have was like shaded in like very aggressive black, and like the imagery there, the aesthetics and the rhetoric behind the pieces were something that was kind of disturbing, because again, growing up, I didn't really, I had some experiences that I wasn't really fond of, and I only had to express it one way, right? But that was before I was aware of what the pieces were. To me, I just wanted to make them cool, until my dad was vocal about, how I was expressing myself. And that kind of came to a revelation to me, because I understood that in any context, all art is just a manifestation of your consciousness, whether you are conscious about it or not. And him being vocal about it and having me bring focus to that kind of gotten me into a more determined mode with my artwork, because again, I didn't know that I was expressing myself in the way that I only knew how, right? I wasn't aware of that. So when I was, that encouraged me to change within, to change this, to change that, and to express myself in a way that not only can people comprehend, consume, but also be encouraged by, to be influenced by, and et cetera, and et cetera. So I would say that talent is one thing, but vision is another. And it took me like a lot of years with the courage of my people in my close circle to actually get me to weaponize my pieces in a good way, in a positive way, to use this to help the community, to use it as my shield and my sword. And a lot of people go through what I go through, or went through worse. And I think that my art isn't going to cure your mental illness. It's not going to help you or alleviate you from your sadness. But one thing that I do realize about struggles is it's a lot easier when you know that you're not the only person. So, this was me finding myself and understanding what my art should be and what it shouldn't be about. I would say that all of these things really did contribute to my growth as a person and as an artist. I do think that they are both hand in hand. So, yeah. For my art process for painting is different. It's going to be different from my articulate process with design. You know what I mean? I feel like design is artistic expression, but the centralized nature of it is to relay information. With art, you don't necessarily have to understand what you see to feel what you see. So the process is, different. So I will start with my works. So with my works, it kind of depends. I'm not, as an artist, I'm not necessarily in love with having a vision with my paintings purely and executing it the way I see it. I don't think that that's fun. I think that, I'm very personal with my works, and, me being aware that I'm letting my subconscious take me where I want to go I don't want to have full control over my process. I just don't think that that's fun. I don't think that there's any mystery there. If you're going to do that, you might as well make design. You know what I mean? I want to make some works that even I don't understand at that moment. But then over time, the more I understand what this can mean to me, it has its own story there. And some days I do, do it by design, if it's a commission work, or even because for the hell of it, what, I went by this way I made art this way for this long. I want to change it up. You know what I mean? I think that if anything, one word that describes my artistic process is inconsistency, and I think that relates to who I am as a person too. When I were to go to high school, right? All right, cool. This class is on this third floor. I'm going to take this elevator up. But damn, I'm going to do that the same way every day. I can't go this way. I can't see what this part of the building looks like. So it's just, I want to stimulate myself every time I make something new. And I like the fact that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't question my talent, but I don't know what my talent is going to bring me. My design works process is always going to be dependent on what do I want to talk about. So I'm working on some pieces right now that is obviously inherited my artistic prowess or my style, but it's going to be different in nature compared to this, to that, to what you see before you. You know what I mean? I just think that conceptually, that's where I start. Conceptualization is the infrastructure for for all the things that I do, right? So if I want to portray happiness, or I want to portray sadness, or if I want to portray anger in some sort of, meta complicated way, I have to break it down first. What is a color, or what is a hue, or what is a brushstroke that emphasizes or supports the idea of this concept? If I'm doing fear, I'm not gonna do like purple, you know what I mean? I can for a motif, but I'm thinking more black, more red, right? And how do I want to, make these brushstrokes? I want to make it violent. I want to do this and that. And, I don't want, because there's a lot of artists that I admire, that I used to admire, but a good chunk of not just artists, but like visual, but artists, period, their product is associated with their name, right? So if I see this, then I'm associating you with that. But what's scary about that is once you solidify that, it's going to be very hard to break out of that, right? So if I have this intellectual property of a character, I'm associating your name with that character, and over a decade of you releasing work, that's the only thing I'm going to associate you by. So you're not going to necessarily have wiggle room to step out of that boundary without getting some sort of remarks or responses with that in the way that you probably aren't anticipating. So with me, the way I work is I want to maintain my style, right, of the spray paint, this, that, and the third. But shoot, I might make cartoons one day. I might go full James Jean or a full Hugh Brantley and just start straight cartoon. You know what I mean? Because I'm over the realism. And then after that, I might go back to the realism, this, that, and the third. So I don't think that, again, there's no systemic way that I make work outside of concept this and then but if I make something, I really don't want my audience to be bored. I really don't want you to anticipate the same thing. That is why people like what people do who are big, is because they don't know. The contemporary world in regards to Hawaii is purely aesthetic. It's kind of superficial. If you go to any gallery in Hawaii, the pieces that sell are the pieces that have like this nice horizon line with these mountains, and then you see these atmospheric fog in the background as it fades away with these light rays going on, or it's Haleakala or Police, really well known mountains and volcanoes on the land. People paint these things all the time. But people see these things all the time. What's the difference? You know what I mean? Do you want to tackle on the visual aspect of Hawaii, or do you want to take on the spiritual aspect of Hawaii? And I'm an extremely spiritual guy. So I wanted to try to, spiritually put a filter on my experiences. If you look at the artist statement, these are all my experiences that I have had one way or another. And it might not be like a specific reference to what I've experienced, but more like I felt this way about this group of people, or I felt this way about about the experience with this specific program or this specific event, or I've had this crazy experience jumping off a cliff before, or I've seen people jump through bonfires, or I've seen people swim through oceans. And dude, I didn't even know when I was at Hawaii that like people read water. Like they can read, okay, so the waves look choppy here, so it might not be good, we might have to go. I'm like, choppy? What does that mean? So it's like really dope how they also understand, they just understand where they're at. Like they understand what the land says when it speaks to them. They understand what the ocean says when it speaks to them. And that's purely spiritual. And I just don't think that a lot of artists captures that spiritual, you know what I mean? Because that's what it is. Like when you go to Hawaii, be in the mountains, turn off your phone and hear how the outside sounds. It's alive. Like, and I don't mean like the wind. I'm not like, I'm talking like you mess around and actually hear something like spirits, like it's real. And I don't think that art nowadays in the modern day contemporary for these indigenous peoples and cultures and lifestyle really understands that, and it shows through their art. You know, I mean, Hawaiians are beautiful people. But I just think that I don't like the idea of taking that beauty on a mass appeal and monetizing it without truly understanding that. Because with beauty, there's two type of beauties there. There's the peaceful beauty, and then there's beautiful chaos, which is there too, which is, you know, the loud crashing oceans, which is the jumping off of the cliffs and everything. Like these are like, dude, when I jumped off a cliff for the first time, I'm from Chicago. We don't have cliffs, okay? I had never jumped out of no airplane before. I scream when I feel turbulences. So when I was hanging out with my friends and they convinced me somehow to jump off that cliff, and I took that leap of faith, you can argue that one has ascended his understanding of what life is, because you put yourself in a position that you perceive to be life or death, because that's what that fear is. You really don't want to do it, and you do it anyway. You feel free. And I think that that is the main aspect of what I'm trying to talk about in some motifs of my works. My life is dramatic, so every day is a new thing, you know. Going back to the previous questions about me talking about how I had to express myself in a way, and, you know, the imagery that I would express myself in would be depicted as disturbing to some. And, you know, my dad would be vocal about, yo, you know, this is what you're doing. I want you to be aware about what you're doing, right? You know, just because I'm aware of how I express myself doesn't mean that that internal demon or pain or love, hate, that doesn't dissipate. But what does change is how I choose to express myself. Instead of subscribing to the aesthetic of, oh, darkness, this, that, and the third, why doesn't that, I feel like if you have that darkness, that makes the light so much more brighter now, because now you understand the value of it. Again, my life is dramatic, and I mean dramatic. And I think that it is fuel. It's fuel for my engine, for my creative engine. I don't want to experience this dramatic event happen and then let it die that moment. I have the power to immortalize my experiences. And although some would perceive it as small or big, again, I have the ability to understand how I feel at all times. I have the ability to understand how does this make me feel. And because I have that ability, I'm never gonna run out. You know what I mean? I don't reject sides of myself. You know, mind you, I'm an artist that gauges what he wants to do with how he feels. My whole career is based off of me being vulnerable. And I'm really good at being vulnerable. And not the only way, but in this way. So, you know, if I wake up and something happens or this happens or that happens, or even, and it doesn't even have to be like trauma or dramatic. Sometimes maybe I'm in love. You know, maybe I'm doing all these things, but I'm really good at knowing how I feel. I don't like realism, like a John Singer Sargent or even a Kehinde Wiley, even though it's slightly abstracted. I like the experience of taking realism and having that aspect of art interact with a different nature. So, you know, sometimes I might have cubism, or sometimes I might have doodle art, or sometimes I even mess around, put anime in there, right? But that's not the dope part. The dope part is when you make those two worlds intertwine. When like I don't know, you paint a character that's interacting with this two-dimensional figure, and it's so black and white that you can't ignore the different styles, but the way that they interact with each other is so successful that you have no choice but to be compelled by that. That is the fun part, that execution. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, now I completed this step, and then I completed this step. All right, what does this look together? Even when I was making the fire motif or aspect of my collection, bro, I don't want to just paint fire. You know, I want to paint the nature of fire. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to just, all right, this is a nice gradient here. No, fire is, all right, you want to put splatter on it. It's pure energy. You're replicating energy. You're not painting that. That's not, like, what, bro? You want to, I mean, it's, think about it like this. Fire, the idea of fire is pure energy, all right? You could replicate that so many different ways, and you could do it your way. You know what I mean? I don't want to, you know, I love the idea of just expressing myself in my strokes. And even in realism, I'm also expressing myself in certain ways with the color choices or the palettes or whatever. And even I've had some critiques, or not critiques, but criticisms of people like saying, why don't you finish the side of your canvas? Like, why don't you? Because I want you to see my work process. I want you to see the marks there. I want you to see the pencil sketch. I want you to see all of that. I want it to be completely raw. You know, I want you to see my ideas. I want you to see that paint on the first layer and how I stack that layer on top. I want you to see that. I'm not like, I want you to see where my mind is at. And I think that also shows where my mind is at. So, you know, all these things are fun. You know what I mean? Like every single last thing, the coming up with it, the painting, the realism, trying to figure out how these things interact, and just leaving it for the people to just look at and consume and ask questions and wonder and all these things. So yeah, it's a lot. I feel like Crossing Arts is very passionate. And I mean, I told the Alliance like multiple times when I was setting up that they are easily the best experience I've ever had with the gallery. I have been around with some galleries. I have, you know, done stuff with a local Chicago gallery. I have worked with, you know, big name galleries. And I mean, just a couple people who are just very understanding, who knows what art is about, who really understands, and not only understand, but genuinely appreciates the artistic vision and make you feel appreciated. Like, bro, it's so simple. You know, like, we're here, we do art, and that's about it, you know, and we share the vision of taking that art and just giving it to the community, because that's what it's all about. I feel like a good chunk of the art experience is gatekeepery. You know, without naming names, it's very gatekeepery, and like you have to like prove yourself. You know what I mean? Like being good isn't enough. You know what I mean? You could be talented, but that's definitely not enough. You got to prove yourself to be an asset, right? You got to prove yourself that if I put your name here, people will come and I will sell, and that's the only priority, and this, that, and the third. But they don't even really care about what the people think or what the people feel. Crossing Out cares about what the people feel. And I could hear it even in the emails or even in the small little conversations that they have. Like, I have been in a professional field for multiple years, and I'm telling you, Crossing Out was the only time I'm like, oh, okay, well, I get to chill here. You know what I mean? And I would say that is a culture that needs to be seen more within the art world, not community, world. I think that all artists needs to be given that sense of hospitality, that sense of support, because again, like I said earlier, when you're an artist, you're purely vulnerable. You're having your ideas, you're expressing yourself in different ways, shapes, and form. So you can imagine when you first try to put your stuff out there, when you try to submit yourself to a program, to a residency, to a grant, to a gallery showing, you know, how scared that can be. And they have no issue saying, all right, bro, honestly, you gotta go. Like, you gotta go out here. Your stuff is whack. So for the Alliance to be like, yo, I really like your ideas. I really want you to come over here. And like, you know, again, I've had experiences where the energy is one thing over the email, but in person is completely different. But for it to be consistent and for it to be full of real authentic people, it's like, oh, all right, this is dope. Yeah, so I didn't even know that the type of marketing that Crossing Arts was actually going to put in was going to happen. I'm telling you, like the galleries that I've been with couldn't give a damn about like, hey bro, people come, they come. If not, oh well. Like I have had some showings where some people bought my works and they didn't even like ship. Like they were like, oh, sorry bro, you're gonna have to like come all the way over here, bro, I don't know what to tell you, and left me in the wind, like for real. So, you know, just that whole experience is just dope. We're definitely team. I'm definitely team like Crossing Arts for real. Like me and my people, like, no, we definitely love this place for real. It's definitely dope. The other gallery, I can't say the exhibition or like the name yet, but what I can say is that I'm working on more mature depictions of what my style is. I think that I'm being more and more understanding of where I want to go next. It's going to be new, it's going to be different. And this is just off my art stuff alone. I have other varying projects outside of just the contemporary world. I have an opportunity to work with a designer to work on some clothes, as people from Crossing Arts and from the local area, Brainerd knows, not Bernard, you know, I also make bags, and I also take my creativity and extend it out. And, you know, I just think it's time for me to go into sculpture work too. I think that, you know, my whole dedication, my whole goal of being an artist isn't to just make good art. I want you, when you look at my canvas, to be like, wow. So I want to take that and expand it. Like, all right, what does that look like on a shirt? What does that wow look like on a shirt? What does that wow look like in a 3D form? You know what I mean? Like, so I've built a pretty hefty schedule for me this year. So it's gonna be dope. I'm really excited for everybody to see what's gonna happen for sure. Shout out Crossing Arts Alliance. If y'all want to come, y'all should. They are really supportive of the art community for sure. And I'm not talking to Minnesota. I am talking to Chicago. I am talking to Atlanta. I'm talking to Milwaukee for sure. Crossing Arts is definitely where it's at. Just for them to just, again, be so supportive is something that's super dope. And I also want to say for other artists that are out there that are trying, the world isn't going to believe in you until you believe in yourself first. And no matter how many no's happen, no matter how many rejections happen, don't let that be the metric of your worth, of the worth of your vision, of the worth of your style, of the worth of your talent. You know what I mean? Sometimes people are talented and the world just hasn't seen it yet. You have to be the person who sees it first. And once you are the person who sees it first, nothing can stop you. You have to remain that integrity, and you have to remain strong throughout all your trials and tribulations in your career. And I promise you, if you keep that up and if you believe in yourself and you have a proper support system, you will make it.